elimination diets and menopause specifically, because we know that hormonal changes that come with perimenopause and menopause, that decline in estrogen, massively affects our gut. There are lots of women who do not experience any type of gut health issues until they hit perimenopause. A lot of people are not taught how to bring food back in so they don't gain the weight back, so they don't have the symptoms again. I just want to eat cheese again. That was my goal. So I was very grateful when I did this and I reintroduced cheese and I felt fine. You guys, it was I'm just so happy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness coaching company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you start experiencing so many changes in this time of your life, whether it's the hot flashes, the night sweats, irritability, brain fog, or waking around the middle. That seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere, despite you not changing anything. So you go back to those tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a bunch of cardio, yet it feels like nothing is working. You're putting in all this effort and you are just moving backwards. But we know now that your body is inherently different now that you've gone through these hormonal changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to really help you understand how your body changes in this time of your life, so you can reach those health and fitness goals, feel in control and at home in your body again, live a life full of vitality, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today, I have a very special episode. I had the wonderful Coach Hannah on the podcast, gut health queen extraordinaire, and we were talking all about elimination diets because we've been getting so many questions about elimination diets. Do I need one? How do I come out of it? I'm struggling with my gut health. Is this necessary? So we talked about who they're for, how to do them properly, how to reintroduce foods, the different types of elimination diets, and everything that you need to know. And of course, how it ties into menopause and the changes that we experience when that wonderful estrogen level starts to decline. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as we enjoyed recording it. And make sure to share the episode with all your friends struggling with their gut health. Well, welcome back, everyone. Today, I have the wonderful Coach Hannah with us on the podcast. We are talking all about elimination diets. This is something that we hear a lot of people doing. They're, doing whatever it might be. They're told to do low FODMAPs, or they're told to take this out and that out and take out dairy and take out gluten and all the things. And we want to talk a little bit about what the science is behind the elimination diets, the benefits, the right way to do it, how to come back out of it, reintroduce foods. I had asked a bunch of questions on my stories, so we have a few of those that we're also going to answer by the end of this episode as well. But I know that this can be a bit of a frightening, daunting, overwhelming kind of topic for a lot of women. Our goal is to really help you understand, do you even need this? Is it something you even have to worry about? Because just because so-and-so down the street is doing it doesn't mean that it's going to be beneficial for you. Is it actually going to get you the results that you want? Is it realistic? How do we actually navigate this? Because elimination diets are useful in that it helps you understand your body's specific needs and triggers regarding potential allergies or sensitivities, managing symptoms. But long term, it's there's so much more you guys need to know. So Hannah, I'll let you take it away with some of the studies that we found while we were researching all this stuff.
Yeah, so studies show that up to 20% of people think that they have a food intolerance, yet only a fraction of those people actually have an allergy. So an example here within our Vitality family is Coach Brittany. I've been working with her for over a year now, and we have gone through an elimination diet process. She went years without eating dairy, many years, probably a decade or at least close to it, without eating dairy because she believed she was intolerant or allergic to it because she was always reactive. Yet with a proper elimination protocol, she's now able to eat dairy, and that includes cow's milk, which tends to be the most reactive, and was previously one of her biggest offenders, and she's able to digest it with no adverse symptoms. So that's just one of many examples to show that you may think you have an intolerance or an allergy, but very few people actually do. And if we can go through this process of an elimination diet, understanding it, how to do it the right way, you might be able to eat these foods again. So the main things that we're going to go over today with discussing elimination diets are, what even is it? Right? What does elimination diet mean? Who are these elimination diets for? When do we use them? What is the relevance of elimination protocols, specifically in menopause? Also, what are the various protocols? And then also, how do we properly execute the elimination diet protocol / reintroduction process to get the best results? So, Steph, what is an elimination diet?
Yeah, so an elimination diet this is a very important part, you guys, a short-term structured eating plan. Short-term, not forever, short-term structured eating plan where specific foods are removed and then reintroduced. Reintroduced. So we actually try to eat those things again. We don't just cut them out for the rest of our lives, which people are like, oh, I think I messed up. Yes, most people have messed up, and this is why we're having this podcast. And this is to help us really identify those potential triggers as well as heal our gut. So let's go over first between the differences between an allergy, an intolerance, and sensitivities, as these are 3 places where foods can create some trouble, and differentiating between those will help you learn to what we're avoiding, what we're introducing, the right foods for you specifically. So allergies, they cause an immune system reaction. In minutes to hours, it's pretty immediate. It can be very life-threatening, and you'll get things like hives, swelling, anaphylaxis. Very severe. You will know right away if something bad has happened, right? Then we have intolerances. So this is like the next level down. So this can cause digestive system issues. So, you might have gas, bloating, diarrhea. The time frame can be hours to days before symptoms arise. So this is where people can get mixed up. They're like, oh, it must be this thing I just ate, when in reality it could have been things that you had for breakfast. It could have been things you ate the day before that. And the severity is that it's just uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. And then we have sensitivities. And these the cause of this is either immune or digestive. It's not 100% clear what's causing that. The time frame can also be delayed as well, potentially hours to days, just like the intolerances. Severity is going to vary person to person. And this is going to be more symptoms like fatigue and joint pains and headaches. So for myself, I have a soy intolerance, big time. And it's usually pretty quick for myself. I'll feel it right away. I am bloated. I am nauseous. My body is like, get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. So I have a soy intolerance myself, not an allergy, an intolerance, because I'm not getting the hives. It's not super immediate where it's like life-threatening. But my body is not happy at all. It is get this thing out of us. So Hannah, how do we know, what thing it is? Do we have an allergy, an intolerance, a sensitivity? How do we know?
Yeah, so to figure out which of these it is, consider your symptoms. What is the severity of that symptom? And then also, what's the frequency of their occurrence? So say you eat peanuts and then you go into anaphylaxis. You likely have a peanut allergy.
That one's pretty obvious.
Yeah. If you eat a bunch of peanut butter, which, come on, who hasn't? Unless you, of course, have a peanut allergy. But it's so easy to eat too much peanut butter. And say a couple days later, you experience a little bit of gas, but nothing more. You might have an intolerance to peanuts or even just peanut butter. And then if you eat peanuts and experience a headache or some inflammation in the joints, there's a chance that you have a sensitivity to peanuts, but you're not allergic or intolerant to them. So the difference with sensitivities and intolerances compared to allergies is that often we can regain our ability to consume and digest certain foods that we are sensitive or intolerant to. And it's less likely, but still possible, to see that with allergies. So knowing how to kind of view our symptoms here, is it an allergy? Is it an intolerance? Is it a sensitivity? What are we going to do to go through this elimination diet process? Is it necessary for us? Who are they for, Steph?
Yeah, so primarily we're going to find that they are for people who struggle with unexplained symptoms and haven't found relief through traditional interventions. So typically it's going to be seen in people who have IBS, IBD, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, celiac disease, autoimmune disorders. We did a whole live training on this in our Facebook group specifically, if you want to go back and listen to that. If we have histamine intolerances. So an elimination diet is going to be great for you if you're feeling you've exhausted all the more simple approaches to symptom relief, right? Whether it's medical or holistic approaches, and you've just really found no relief. And you also love food, which big fans of food over here, and you want to eat as many foods as possible. You want to be able to go out to restaurants and not be worried about what little things could be contaminating things, right? We want to be able to enjoy food without experiencing those triggers or worrying that we're going to feel pain and discomfort or be bloated and not fully enjoy the experience, right? So our goal is always to establish trigger foods, keep those out, yet bring in all other foods in order to support your mental well-being, as well as creating a robust gut microbiome for your overall well-being. Gut microbiome, super, super important. Research from the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics shows elimination diets are effective for conditions like IBS, migraines, and eczema. These conditions often cause individuals to be sensitive or intolerant to very specific foods, and elimination protocols allow us to discover those specific foods for you while also supporting the intake of many other foods as possible. So we want to make sure you're still getting all the micronutrients you need, all the calories you need, enough protein, enough fiber, enough carbs, enough fat. And a study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that 70% of IBS patients reported symptom relief with elimination diets, which is amazing. So we know this works, but the issue is a lot of people do not do it correctly. So Hannah, who are elimination diets not for? Because we talked about people with IBS and different gut health issues, autoimmune conditions, histamine intolerances. Who should avoid elimination diets? Because there's always two sides of the coin.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely the other side of the coin here would be people who have a history of eating disorders. And this is because elimination diets can trigger restrictive eating behaviors, which we don't want. And that's not to say somebody with a history of eating disorder can never go through an elimination diet process. That's not true. But you have to consider where you're at. If you're not in a good place currently with your relationship with food, an elimination diet is not going to help you. We also want to avoid elimination diets if we are pregnant, unless it's medically necessary. But again, try and give that human being that you are growing the most diverse nutrient intake possible, and also for yourself, for your own health in that stressful period. And then also, elimination diets are definitely not for people who are only looking to lose weight. That is not the focus of an elimination diet. It is advised to navigate the elimination diet process with a coach, or at least the supervision of doctors, dietitians, or nutritionists, in order to avoid nutrient deficiencies, because we are eliminating foods in this process. And it's really key to assess your biofeedback on a daily and weekly basis, because that's how we're going to know what foods are doing what in our body. So we often miss our own shifts in biofeedback when they happen slowly over time, where an outside person like a coach or medical staff can catch them as they review your symptoms from a 10,000 foot view. So having a guide in this process is especially necessary if you do have a history of eating disorders, yet have not seen any relief from symptoms, and the elimination diet really is your last option here. An elimination protocol is intended to help you in the long run. So entering into one on your own when you're already struggling with your relationship with food can really be a recipe for disaster, and we definitely do not want that. So if you are in this category of people to avoid elimination diets, still listen. There's a lot to learn here. And even if you're not going through an entire process, there's a lot that you can take away from this. So now that we know who are elimination diets for, who are they not for, let's talk about when do we use an elimination diet.
Yeah, and for the elimination diet too, if you're wanting to lose weight, an elimination diet is not the choice to make. But if you're someone who's dealing with a lot of gut health issues and the sensitivities and things like that are then resulting in inflammation or resulting in bloating or resulting in hormonal imbalances and higher stress, we know that the elimination diet will help heal that, which will then help you lose weight, right? But if you're not experiencing those gut health type issues and the autoimmune conditions and the histamine intolerances, and you're just trying to lose weight by cutting out food groups, that's not what this is for. So it's for healing, which can then help you with weight loss. But if you're not dealing with those gut health issues, it is not the place to be using an elimination diet. So When do we use an elimination diet? I've actually used one before. It was right after my mom had died. Shocking. With the amount of stress that I had in my life, that my body was like, everything you ate during this time is now associated with a trauma response, and now everything is bad. So I myself have gone through an elimination diet while also pairing it with like serious recovery, doing some strength training, but like my intensity of stuff, like I was focusing on improving my sleep. Like there's a whole facet that comes along with it, right? And when we consider the use of elimination diets, like we have to address many of the flags that are signaling immune and gut distress. Because of course we can always try these more like simple shifts first, like increasing your water intake, regulating your daily nutrition, stress regulation, appropriate strength training, recovery balance, supporting sleep and detox as well. Like those were all things that I did, which by the way are a lot easier than elimination diet. Then other people are like, oh, it'd be so easy just to cut out bread. I'm like, that's not how this works. So you have to do the other things first. And then if we see that it's not working, then you go into the elimination diet, which is what I had to do, right? I did all the other things and I was like, I just want to eat cheese again. Like that was my goal, was to eat cheese again, because I felt like every time I had dairy, I was like, just like Coach Brittany, just struggling. And I'm like, I love ice cream. I love cheese. Cheese is my favorite food group. It's a food group on its own, I swear. And it's my favorite. And so we have to make sure we're doing all those other things first and seeing how that improves symptom relief before going to the elimination diet. It helped some of my symptoms for sure, but I was still experiencing a lot of bloating after meals, particularly where there was a lot of dairy. And like it was wintertime. In wintertime, I am like the queen of cream soups. And so that was like a very devastating time for me. I remember like with my ex-boyfriend, my now ex-boyfriend, I was like standing in the kitchen and like we're making, I don't know what it was, like they're making grilled cheese sandwiches and I'm just having like a boring sandwich with no cheese. And I was just like, so like I was crying. Like I was so just, I was not in a good time in my life. And just like not being able to have cheese was just like that icing on the cake. So again, if you're having those continued symptoms after dealing with all these things of like potentially skin issues, I had lots of acne. That's one of them. You can have eczema, migraines. I used to get those all the time. Joint pain, swelling and inflammation, bloating and gas. Those are my two really big ones. Diarrhea, constipation, brain fog, memory issues, even nasal congestion. Those are all symptoms that we might have to do an elimination diet if the other things of like stress reduction and the appropriate exercise and the sleep and the consistent nutrition aren't working. That's when you approach that. And that's where I was at.
Yeah. And you want to do all those other things first, because an elimination diet is not an easy feat by any means.
Everyone thinks it's so easy.
No.
You guys, it sucks. It sucks.
It is. If you do it the right way to get the results that are going to stick for a long time, it takes time.
And worth it in the end. But
serious dedication.
Yeah, it sucks.
Pretty big changes, right? These other things, these lifestyle changes, implemented progressively over time, they're not crazy big changes. It's just like, okay, let's make these shifts. An elimination diet from like one day to the next is a major shift. So,
and especially if you're the only one in your household eating that way.
Yeah.
Like watching them have macaroni and cheese, crying. Grilled cheese, crying. Cream of potato soup, crying. Couldn't have pizza. Like, it's hard because I can guarantee you, like, your partner's not going to give up bread and cheese and whatever else you got to cut out just because you are. They're going to sit there and eat it in front of you. They're going to have the chips. They're going to have the chocolate. It's hard. It's really hard. So it's not fun.
Yeah, if you have a partner who willingly gives up all of these things that they don't really need to give up, you have keep that person.
Yeah, tell them you love them so much.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, so using elimination diets, they're used in conjunction with other factors to heal our gut, which will inevitably allow you to live a happy, healthy, and far more comfortable life. So regarding healing the gut, the 4R, so the number 4, letter R, protocol is super common. So those 4 R's are remove, replace, repair, repopulate. And the repair and the repopulate can either be flip-flopped or they can be done in conjunction, like overlapped at the same time. But the 4R protocol can be done in a more simplified manner. Like you don't need to do a full elimination protocol. Like say, you know, 1 or 2 specific foods that trigger you, you can take only those out for a while as you replace and repair and repopulate to support your gut microbiome. And then if that works, amazing. There's no need for a lengthy, more complex elimination diet for you. At that point, you just reintroduce those trigger foods slowly, which we'll discuss that process of how to do so later on. But it's when that more simple removal does not work, despite the replacing, repairing, and repopulating of your gut microbiome, where it's like, okay, it's time for an elimination diet. So if you don't know what causes your symptoms, you can likely skip right to the elimination diet after implementing the appropriate lifestyle factors that we talked about before. But if you know those trigger things, if you're like, yeah, every time I have this, triggered my inflammation, triggers my headaches, triggers whatever it is. Okay, start with that 1 or 2, maybe 3 things that you know cause that. But if you have no idea, if you are fully unaware, which so many people are, A, because we're pretty disconnected from our bodies, and B, because we don't take the time to really stop and learn and pay attention to how every single meal or snack impacts us. But if you don't know what impacts you, skip to the elimination protocol because you're probably still going to need it. So some other information from studies to encourage you to keep listening and to consider this possibility of elimination diet for you. I know we've said like, wow, it's really hard, but like, okay, it's worth it, guys. So if you are in any of the categories of people that we've mentioned already, so autoimmune conditions, IBS, etc., there is a study that was done in 2018 where it showed that elimination diets helped to reduce eczema symptoms in 40% of participants. And then there is evidence to show that the low FODMAP diet, which is one of the elimination-based approaches that we'll go over, has been clinically proven to relieve IBS symptoms in over 70% of sufferers, which is a huge number. So please keep these things in mind. It is a hard process, but often hard things really get us to feeling and being in such good places where we really want to be.
Yeah,
So,
with the elimination diets too, like, yeah, they're challenging, but this is why we encourage you to do it with someone so you spend the least amount of time in there and you're not like doing it wrong or wasting your time, because it is challenging. If you do it wrong, it feels like you're restricting yourself forever, which is not good for your mental health. It is not good for your relationship with food. It is not good for your energy. So this is why learning to do it the right way and honestly having someone to guide you is like so beneficial, because otherwise it'll just feel like it's never ending. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's not working. You're feeling deprived. And it is really hard. So elimination diets in menopause specifically, because we know that hormonal changes that come with perimenopause and menopause, that decline in estrogen, massively affects our gut, massively affects our digestion, and can lead to more frequent and even more intense symptoms for women in menopause. Like, we know that there are lots of women who do not experience any type of like gut health issues or the bloating, the gas, the constipation, things like that until they hit perimenopause. And they're like, I haven't changed anything. Why am I suddenly like having all these food intolerances and these sensitivities and these gut health issues? Estrogen, right? Estrogen, she's wonderful, but also when she leaves, it can be really devastating. So because of these hormonal changes, our tolerance and capacity for certain foods can absolutely change. Your body changes in this time of your life. If this is the case for you, know that it is normal, it is common, but we can do something about it. It is not just what you have to accept. It is not just how life is now. That is not what we advocate for here. There is always a way to get control of your body again. So we know that hormonal changes and the symptoms that they bring are not a life sentence, right? It's not a death to our freedom, our well-being, our livelihood, our quality of life. We can make things change for you. And elimination diets can definitely help with this. So we encourage you to take charge, make changes. I can't tell you how many women I talk to who are like, oh, well, I heard about that on the podcast, but I like wasn't sure. And now I get a lot more women who are like, oh, I started eating breakfast. I started doing this, started doing that, and feeling so much better. And I'm like, thank you. Like, action takers, just choose one thing and start changing, because it'll make massive difference. The longer you wait, the deeper the hole is that you got to dig yourself out of. So even if the changes that we recommend, like having breakfast and, oh my gosh, eating carbs, even if they're not traditional and they go against the grain of everything you've known and they're scary, I mean, we tell you ladies to do those things all the time. And when you finally do, you're blown away and it scares the crap out of you. And you're still like, I don't think I should be doing this, even though I feel so great. We get that from clients all the time. They're like, I just can't wrap my head around it. I'm like, that's okay. We just got to keep doing the things. Keep doing the things. You're going to keep feeling better. But like, we can't keep going back and forth because that's a huge stress on your body as well. So even if you're not totally satisfied with how your gut is reacting to things right now, we can help you take those necessary steps to see the changes that you have hoped for.
Yeah. And just some, common things that can be triggering to women in menopause specifically is that our gut becomes more susceptible to food sensitivities and gut permeability triggered specifically by dairy. And this is due to a decline in lactase production, which is that enzyme necessary to break down lactose, which is found in dairy. And then caffeine and alcohol tend to worsen hot flashes, create some more inflammation within our body, which can create more sensitivity to other foods, not just the caffeine and the alcohol, and also just create a bit more inflammation, which makes digestion harder and slows things down, which we don't want. We're trying to fix that here. And then processed sugar. We'll talk about this a little later as well, but processed sugars tend to increase inflammation more within our body. Just inherently, there's not really any way around it with that one. And that's not to demonize sugar as a whole. Like, by all means, coconut sugar can be far better and much easier for your body to digest, way less inflammatory, still absolutely wonderful. So yeah, not every single sweet thing is bad. That's not what we're saying here. But processed sugar, like your classic white sugar, can be pretty inflammatory and just something to be aware of. And as we mentioned earlier, the use of elimination diets can reduce or entirely alleviate symptoms like bloating, joint pain, and fatigue, which are often new or just worsened symptoms for many women in perimenopause and menopause. So if we can get rid of those, that'd be pretty awesome. So
yeah, you'll feel so great. You'll feel so great. So there are a lot of different kinds of elimination diets that you can do. And we're not talking about like low carb, low fat, Atkins. Like that's not what we're talking about. Those are not elimination diets. That's just bad advice. I don't know how else to say it. But we are specifically referring to diets intended to heal the individual, not just lose weight. Like doing the low carb, the low fat, the Atkins, the Weight Watchers, all those things, they're not intended to heal the individual. That is not the purpose. It's just trying to make money off you to lose weight, right? It's not actually teaching you anything about your body and how to heal and improve your health overall. Those are just, bad advice. So these are just some quick overviews on, some of the different elimination diets. There's so many, and we could dive so much deeper with all the do's and the don'ts of everything, but otherwise this podcast would literally be forever long. So we're going to try and keep it brief and just kind of give you the things that you need to know. So the first one is just like the basic elimination diet. This is just removing common allergens like dairy, gluten, soy, eggs, and alcohol. Then we have the low FODMAP diet. This is great for SIBO and IBS type issues. And this is removing certain fruits and high fiber vegetables, illumins, grains, legumes, dairies, sweeteners, and processed foods. So these are all things that can ferment differently in our body. Our body will produce more inflammation from them. So sometimes for people with gut health issues, we actually have to draw back their fiber to give their gut a little bit of a break because fiber is harder to break down. So that can help a lot for them as well. Then we have...
I'm just going to say alliums. That's that word. And that's things
close.
Close. That's things like all of our onions and garlic and things like that. So yes, temporarily, those things got to go.
Which is onions and garlic. That's like my favorite things to add. If it says 4 cloves, I add 8. Like Taylor just knows. We double it. We double it in this household. So that was also something I had to cut out, which is also devastating. It was just a hard time. And I'm such a food lover. So for me, this was I felt like my life was over. I was a little dramatic, I'll be honest. But it was hard. It was hard for me because I just like to try new foods and indulge and go to a different restaurant, try something different. And you know what they use in restaurants? Garlic and onions. So it was tough. Then we have our autoimmune protocol, the AIP diet. And this is used for autoimmune conditions. It helps, you end up removing grains, dairy, nightshades, and traditional common allergens as well. This tends to be the most intense as there are way more foods to remove at the start than at other elimination diets. So this is more of a challenging one, but for autoimmune conditions, with certain clients, like this has been like really, really helpful for them. And there's also Whole30, which eliminates sugar, dairy, legumes, and grains for 30 days. This is a very popular quote unquote diet where many people feel better after 30 days, but then they add everything back in on day 31 and end up feeling a lot worse. And that is the incorrect way to do it. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to reintroduce foods afterwards. And then there's a specific carbohydrate diet, and that is for Crohn's disease and colitis specifically. So Hannah, how do we do this properly? Because we've talked about how challenging it is and, things we got to watch for, but how do we actually do this process? Like we know what we got to remove, or we have an idea of what we're going to remove. How do we actually do the things?
Yeah, so preparation is key. We're not just going to decide we're doing an elimination diet and tomorrow's the start of the elimination diet. No. Often there's like a month of prep before the elimination diet happens, because once you know you're going to do one, you'll know what's going to be removed in this protocol for you. So if you have these items in your diet often, or they're pantry staples, you're going to want to find replacement items that fit into your plan. And so this is going to include certain spices in some of these diets, your garlic, your onions as well. So you're going to want to take these items out of your normal places. So say you have a go-to, shelf in your spice cabinet for the 4 or 5 seasonings that you always pick up. Instead of having them there because you're likely going to naturally just put them, say, in a container within your cabinet, put them a little bit to the side or in a different place so okay, not those, other spices. Another thing that you can do to know, like, okay, these are things that I can have right now. These are things that I'm not going to be having. You can buy like those sheets of like the teeny, I guess they're not teeny tiny, but they're like little circle stickers, and you can get so many of them for super cheap, and put green stickers on the things that you can have and like a yellow or a red or a pink sticker on the ones that you're not going to have for your spices or any of the things that are in your pantry, right? Because if you don't live alone, you may have other people who still want to have those things. So just make note of it for yourself by implementing some of these preparation habits, if you will, preparation steps. And this is just because we want to prevent any accidental use or consumption, which would set you back, and we don't want to be set back. Naturally, there will be setbacks, and we'll talk about this in a little while, but we don't want them to happen. So we're going to do anything that we can ahead of time to prevent them. I also want you guys to find 3 to 4 recipes for each meal or snack in your day so that you'll already have some variety to work from. The hardest part is going to be when you get to a place where you're like, I just want to have like my easy go-to normal meal, but you can't have something or multiple things in that meal. And so keeping in mind these temporary restrictions, find recipes that are going to allow you to have maybe a similar meal or just explore new recipes. Steph and I, we're food people. We like food. Yeah. So for us, finding and like enjoying new recipes is not difficult, but for some people it can be. So that's why this preparation period is super important, to actually find these things. You may even try a couple of them out to make sure that you are going to want to eat those, because it's important to enjoy this process as much as you can, because it's a process. It takes time. So take the time to find things that you're going to enjoy eating throughout it to satisfy your nutritional needs, satisfy the things that you like, and avoid those things that we're taking out of your diet for a short period of time.
Yeah. And like, you're not just going to decide tomorrow you're doing an elimination diet. Like Hannah said, like you need to pre-plan a little bit, because otherwise you're not going to be successful. It's going to take way longer. You're going to get burnt out. You're going to be stressed out. You're going to be unhappy. And then no one's happy, right? It's not good for your health either way. The third step will be the grocery prep. You want to ensure you have all the proper foods in your house in order to be successful. This process will last much longer than a single grocery shop. So the shopping is continuous, but definitely before the first day, you want to be pretty stocked up in your fridge, freezer, pantry staples so that you're good to go. Even if things don't go as planned, you have different options to choose from because we know that happens, right? Like things will pop up, things will change. So having more options and having some backups is really, really great and important and honestly pretty essential to your success. Step 4 is just doing the dang thing. This is where we really buckle in. So for all elimination diets, you're going to eliminate a specific group or trigger or inflammatory foods for a minimum of 30 days. Ideally, we're looking for 60, but this 30 to 60 day period really allows your body to completely remove the foods from your body, reduce inflammation. Remember that 4R protocol that we talked about? This is the remove part of the process. If you have chronic inflammation, if you have intense joint pain, if you have symptoms that have been around forever with no relief after eating enough food and doing the recovery and the sleep and the change in the workouts and the hydration, we suggest taking that 60 days, the full 60 days, to allow your body to rest and to heal. If symptoms are newer and not super debilitating, they're just kind of stubborn, then we can do like 30 to 45 days. That might be all you need. But again, we need to see how your body responds, how you're feeling, the motivation, the mindset, what the symptoms look like, because that's going to tell us what we need to do because we're working with your body. We're not making any assumptions. We actually want to make sure we're taking data from you and make sure, is this working? Yes or no? What do we need to change? How long do we stay here for, etc.
Yeah, how your body feels, where your headspace is at, what is your mindset, all these things are what the elimination diet progression is really based on. It's based on how we feel. How do you feel? So we discuss biofeedback all the freaking time with so many different things here on the podcast, with our clients and the Facebook group. And that is no different throughout the elimination diet and reintroduction process. Biofeedback is the king here. So truly, truly, truly take note before the elimination process begins what your symptoms are like. What is your energy like? What is your sleep like? What is your digestion like? You know, all of these. What does your skin look like? What does your skin feel like? Is your skin super dry? Does it feel like super stiff? These are all things that you may be like, why is this related to elimination diet? But they are. And it's very important to do just like a head to toe scan before the process starts. Write down everything that's going on because then we'll know how things are progressing.
And headaches too. Headaches and migraines are a big one.
Yeah. So you want to do that full scan beforehand, and then each day throughout the elimination period and the reintroduction period, which we'll get to in a bit here, take note of your symptoms. You know, that energy, that sleep, that inflammation, GI symptoms, recovery, etc. The more information that you collect for yourself, the more likely you're going to establish your ideal diet throughout this process. So knowing things progress based on biofeedback markers, if you have not experienced any symptom relief or even just minimal symptom relief at 30 days, don't go forward and introduce foods. Your body's not ready for it. You're not going to get the benefit out of this, and you're going to feel like it didn't work, but you just have to give it more time. And if you're at 60 days and still experiencing inflammation, again, wait. These are guidelines, like that 30 to 60 days. These are guidelines, not rules. Let your body guide you. Elimination is one part of the healing, but providing necessary nutrients through your food, and if there are certain foods that you can't have that provide nutrients through supplementation, and then even taking time to do things like using a sauna or a steam room so that you can sweat out some toxins to help reduce inflammation. Those can all be key parts of this recovery process as well. So each process here is dependent on you and your body and nothing else. So after this 30 to 60 day time frame, or however long that initial elimination protocol lasts for you, is when we begin the reintroduction process. Again, assuming you're feeling much better. This reintroduction process doesn't look like going right back to eating all the same foods. Please do not do that. You've already gotten to the 30 or 60 day mark. Do not do that to yourself. You've worked so hard to take these foods out, to allow your body to rest, to heal, to recover. Take the time to do the reintroduction process the right way. Listen carefully to this next section, take notes, pause, rewind, do whatever it takes to drill in the importance of a proper reintroduction phase. So, Steph, where do we start with the reintroduction?
Yes, so the reintroduction phase is critical for long-term success. A study in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology in 2020 highlights the importance of slow reintroduction to prevent any false positives in food sensitivity reactions. This means that going slow allows you to identify truly which foods are reactionary to your body. Going too fast will absolutely cloud the accuracy of that symptomatic assessment every day and change your feedback. And we don't want that, because if you can have the food, we want you to have the food, right? Like, we don't want to have, false positives or false negatives where it's like, oh man, like I felt fine, or like, and it's actually causing you harm in the long run, or vice versa. So here's an example of taking time to introduce tomatoes over a 4-day period of time. Starting first with cherry tomatoes. Then the following week, you're trying heirloom tomatoes, and then so on and so forth. It's not starting first with a tomato salad made up of multiple kinds of tomatoes. So it's really important to understand that aspect as well. So why does the slow approach help? First and foremost, our gut microbiome has not been told to digest this certain kind of food for however long you've been in the elimination diet for. So we need a small amount first. Otherwise, you will experience GI symptoms. This is why people are like, low carb, low carb, low carb, low carb. Then you have a bowl of pasta, but the bowl of pasta is the equivalent to 4 servings. And so your body, A, is not used to digesting it. And then you also ate a ridiculous amount. Of course, you're going to feel bloated. That doesn't mean you have a food sensitivity to pasta. That does not mean pasta is bad for you. Like, you can have it. Just, we needed to introduce it slowly. But so many of us do this with keto. So many of us do this with the low fat diets. And all of a sudden it's just like, okay, I'm done. Here's a whole bunch of chocolate. Here's a bunch of like ice cream. Here's a bunch of potato chips, high fat, but also super processed. Of course, your body's not gonna be able to handle that. So a lot of people are like, oh, I can't have that. You can, most likely. It's just you haven't introduced it slowly, and you haven't eaten like a realistic portion. You have eaten in a substantially high amount that, like, if you hadn't restricted yourself in the first place, you probably wouldn't have. So that's the difference there between like understanding the responses to our body and why.
Yeah, so that's where the step-by-step approach really comes in. Steph mentioned it a little bit with, starting with one kind of tomato and then moving forward. So that's what we want to do, is we're reintroducing one specific food at a time. We're not introducing a whole food group at a time. It is one specific food at a time. And you'll do this every 3 to 4 days, assuming things go well. So we're starting small. We'll stick with the tomato example here. So on day 1 of introducing tomatoes, you have 1 to 2 cherry tomatoes. That's it. 1 to 2. On day 2, you'll have 2 to 4 cherry tomatoes. Day 3, you can have 5 to 6. And then on day 4, you take a break from having any. And Steph is next going to talk about tracking symptoms, but this 3 to 4 day process here is true. But if you notice any symptoms after the first time, stop introducing the food.
Yeah, it's not like I'll feel better if I have more. That's not how this works. So I was very grateful when I did this and I reintroduced cheese and I felt fine. You guys, it was like, I don't know. There's no words. It was just, I was like, like I'm just so happy. So track your track your symptoms. So your digestion, is there bloating? Is there constipation? Is there diarrhea? Is there heartburn? Is there discomfort? How is your mood? Are we having any rashes or redness or puffiness, eczema, dry patches, acne? How are your energy levels? Are you finding that you're like completely crashing in the afternoon all of a sudden? Is it affecting your sleep? All those kinds of things. And you want to do that daily. And then when it's a time of more likely to be triggering foods, I encourage before meals and after meals and during meals and recapping the day as well. So if it's like something that you think probably is something that triggers you, like track multiple times in the day how you feel, because you're going to see symptom changes throughout the day if it is a more highly triggering food. And it is a process. So and people are like, oh man, I just want to eat the foods. And it's like, yeah, but you just spent 60 days or however long, like restricting yourself and following the plan and doing so good. Like, don't wreck it, because you don't want to have to do that again. If there is a sign of reaction on any of the days, stop immediately, wait for 2 to 3 days, and then try a different food. Repeat the cycle of 3 to 1 with reintroduction. Just because a food is reactive the first time does not mean it always will be. So you can check back in 6 months. So for myself, luckily the things that make me feel terrible are the soy. And soy is great for like estrogen. It's a great phytoestrogen. However, soybean oil is in like everything. Like, packaged foods, potato chips, stuff like that, which aren't so great for you. And so like for me, if we had a can of Pringles in the pantry, when I say I would crush that whole can, I mean, I would crush that whole can. Like it didn't even happen that long ago. It was probably, I don't know, like 6 months ago, maybe. Like it was after Grayson was born, and he's only 6.5 months, almost 7 months. Oh my goodness, 5 days. Crazy. How did that happen? And so I would like crush it. And like, I did not feel good after, obviously. I don't think it's because of any single ingredient. It's because I ate a disgusting amount of Pringles. So then we bought like at Halloween, those like little mini ones. And I was like, this is great portion control. And I only had one little container, which has 9 chips and 9 chips, 10 chips. I don't know. I actually counted them once. And I felt so sick after, like bloated, gassy. It was terrible. Taylor's like, what did you eat? I'm like, I am so sorry. It's the Pringles for sure. And so like, I was like, maybe it wasn't though. Maybe it was something else, So then like a few days later, I tried again. No, you guys, it's the Pringles. But you know what? Like, we have still some mini cans in the pantry because we had a box from like Halloween that I'm like, it's just sitting there because I'm like, I didn't feel good. Taylor also did not enjoy my company. So we're just not doing Pringles anymore. But like, it's being aware of those things and how that makes you feel. And like, it is anything for me that has soybean oil I cannot do, which in the end ends up being like pretty beneficial because, French fries, usually soybean oil at restaurants, things like that. So it makes it easier to be healthy, to be honest, or healthier. But this is where like, you wait a little bit and you try it again and it's like, oh yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy.
Yeah, sometimes it'll surprise you and you're like, oh, nice. I can have this thing now.
That was me with cheese, man. It was the best day ever.
I can only imagine how happy you were, like knowing how much of a cheese person you are. I can't imagine like spending time with you where you're not eating cheese. Right? Every time you go out to eat, you're like cheese sticks, cheeseburger.
Every time. Yeah, cheese on everything. And like when we're traveling and we're getting like our snacks for events and stuff, the very first thing on the list is cheese
sticks.
Always. I don't know what I would do without cheese. I'd be a very different person.
Yeah, for sure. So with this process, when we're reintroducing foods, we want to start with the least likely offenders first. Yeah, I know that you have now eliminated things and maybe you just really want to have that piece of toast again. Toast is probably one of the most likely to be triggering to you. Wait it out. Please just wait it out. So what is eliminated in all diets that we've talked about here is going to be different, but typically the last things to enter are going to be dairy, legumes, nightshades, gluten, and eggs. And so like I mentioned, gluten and then also dairy tend to be the most reactive for most people. So I would say those should be the last categories to work through. And then generally speaking, we want to continuously avoid added sugars because as I mentioned before, added sugars and highly processed foods and also alcohol are things that are inflammatory in nature and they can throw off your symptomatic reading. So you're not really going to know, was it this added sugar? Was it the highly processed food? Was it the alcohol? Or was it this new ingredient that I added in?
Well, and alcohol will also like kill your gut microbiome too, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize that alcohol does that it completely like breaks down your gut microbiome. So then you have less good bacteria in there to help break things down and like keep things balanced and decrease the bloating. So if you're reintroducing foods, and then also having alcohol at the same time, you're probably going to feel reactions, but like it could be from the alcohol only. Like you have no idea. So definitely avoid alcohol during an elimination diet and the reintroduction phase for as long as possible.
Yes. If not all the way through to the end of your elimination diet until you've got
highly
everything
recommend.
back in, and then you can test and see if you really want to have it. So say, for example, we start with eggs of this, these are the most likely offenders. So we're starting with other things first, other veggies, other fruits, bringing things back in, spices, seeds, whatever. But now we get to eggs. Reminder here, this is a process. And so with an egg, it's not just the egg that you're going to introduce. You might be reactive to the egg white or the egg yolk, or only the combination of the two things together. So the way that we test this is you may be sensitive to only one part. So we're going to start with just the egg yolk. So start by adding an egg yolk only over 4 days. Then you'll take your break. Then egg white only, then take your break. Then the whole egg. And it may look like half an egg yolk one day, half an egg yolk, or a whole egg yolk the next day, then 2 whole egg yolks, and then you take a break. And you see, are there any symptoms? If there are no symptoms, then the next day you have half of an egg white, and then you have a whole egg white, and then you have 2 egg whites, and then you take a break. And then you have half of a cooked egg or a whole cooked egg, and then progressively build from there. So it's 1 egg, which is quote unquote 1 ingredient, but as you can see, it's a process, and it can take up to 2 weeks to reintroduce this single food because there are components to this food. And so take the time, figure it out. I know so many clients where it's specifically egg whites or the number of egg yolks. Like they can have egg yolks, but if they have more than 2 in a day, forget it. Not a good time for them. So really taking that time to understand what is it for you in this process is really, really helpful.
Yeah, and like we encourage you to make a list of the foods that you miss the most. So my number 1 was cheese. Start first with the broad categories and then get more specific. This will allow you to make a step-by-step plan of which foods are coming in and when. And of course, you may plan for every 4th day, but remember, you might need an extra 2 or 3 days break or 2 or 3 weeks to let symptoms come back down if you do experience some, whether it's from previously introduced foods or maybe it's from life stress or just a flare-up. If there are mixed items that you really, really miss and haven't found a substitute for, identify the ingredients in there that you have eliminated and work out the schedule to bring those back in to see if you can bring in that full mixed item in. So for example, mayo. It's got eggs, mustard, sometimes black pepper are eliminated, so you can't go 0 to mayo right away, right? You got to introduce each solo item, each component in that actual food before having it. And like, I think understanding the stress can also cause a lot of digestive issues. So I messaged Hannah because Hannah's like our gut health guru on our team, obviously. And I was like, I think I have SIBO. I'm bloated all the time. I don't know what's happening. And she's like, have you considered breathing for a bit before you eat? And I was like, I don't feel that stressed. I was stressed. So I did feet up before meals and did some deep breathing and then ate and wasn't having bloating after meals anymore. And I'm like, oh, I was just not fine. That's all it was.
Imagine that.
Which is funny because then I proceeded to go through my puking on a plane cortisol situation literally 2 weeks later. And I was like, Hannah was correct. I am a little stressed.
Yep. And those are times we don't want to jump into an elimination protocol, right? SIBO is one of those things where, okay, we have it. We have all these symptoms. Elimination diet. Steph just needed to chill out.
Yeah.
Take some breaths. Take a break from work before sitting down and eating a meal and actually paying attention to the meal.
Yeah. And it's so funny though, because we're coaches. We literally know all this stuff. But in our brain, we're like, it must be something more complex. And I must have to definitely go through a bigger struggle of an elimination diet when it's dude, you just need to chill. Mm-hmm. That was all it was. And she was not wrong.
I also think we forget simple things because we we get to a place where we have these really good habits, but then we fall out of these really good habits, and then we're like, oh, but I do that thing. But then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I haven't done these things for the last 5 months, but I have this habit.
Yeah, I've done that before.
I used to. What do you mean it doesn't still work?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about some common mistakes with reintroducing foods after an elimination protocol. So, number one, introducing too many foods at once. Steph just talked about our combination mixed foods like mayo. If you bring mayo back in and you're reactive to it, you're not going to know what the heck you're reactive to. And the reason this is problematic is because you're not going to know, okay, I'm reactive to eggs, I'm reactive to mustard, I'm reactive to black pepper, whatever it is from, say, the mayo as our example here. And you may then just eliminate all of those things. But if you just bring in one food at a time, you'll figure out, I can have eggs, I can have mustard, I can have black pepper. Oh, great, I can also have mayo. So don't limit yourself in discovering what you can truly have. And the next mistake is just not giving yourself enough time for symptoms to show. So symptoms, as noted in reviewing like allergies, sensitivities, and intolerances, it may take a few days to appear. So going too quickly and doing one food per day or even every other day doesn't allow you to determine which food is causing the symptoms. So take it slow. It's a journey.
And the next one is thinking that one time won't hurt, because, oh man, can it really, really, really hurt? Not just your symptom expression and intensity, but your ability to reintroduce foods moving forward if you have an intense inflammatory response by tossing in one thing too soon. So like that would be like you are on a super clean elimination diet and the first thing that you decide is to have 2 bites of a donut. That is not going to go well because there are so many ingredients, highly processed, lots of sugar, like so many red flags. Like that is not where you want to go. And you're like, oh, it'll be fine. It's just one time. No, it can be really, really, really not good. And the other thing is adding in everything at the end of the 30 to 60 days initially once you're done. Because a lot of people are not taught how to bring food back in, just like lots of people aren't taught how to come out of a diet appropriately so they don't gain the weight back, so they don't have the symptoms again. They're just told, eliminate this for X amount of days and then try and have it again. But it's an intimidating process. Like I think going through this, you guys are just like, okay, maybe I need one, but now I'm like scared because you said it's hard. I have to be really on it. I have to pre-plan. I have to make sure I have certain things, like to make sure I'm removing the right things. And I got to introduce things slowly. And most people are just like, oh, I kind of did the elimination thing and now just like, screw it. I'm done. My brain capacity isn't there. And it's just too daunting, too overwhelming. I just want to be normal again. And you add everything in because you're like, I feel good enough right now. Right. And this is the same thing that happens when people stop the keto or the carnivore and they just add everything back in. It's terrible. It's terrible. You have to pick things that are easy to digest first. So if you did keto, the first thing you want to add is like a potato, and you increase that slowly. Then we add in white rice because it's easier to digest. Then we're moving into quinoa. You pick one in to bring it in very slowly. Then after you're good and you're okay and you can tolerate it, then you can progressively increase the amount until it's actually one full serving. Because you're not just going to go from no potato to baked potato. That's not how it works. You're going to have just a little bit of potato. Then you're going to rinse and repeat with the next ingredient on the list, right? And over time, you'll have a greater variety of carbohydrates, a greater capacity to digest food because you're retraining your gut on how to digest things. You're not just slamming it with all this stuff, right? Like that would be like, I don't know, like imagine you're trying to teach your kid how to put their shoes on at the same time, but you also don't just do slip-on shoes. You put them in like tying shoes right away and expect them to tie their shoe and you just like show them how to do it. Like they're not going to figure it out. It's like, okay, we have a progression. First, we're going to teach you how to put a shoe on. Maybe you're starting with a sock. Then you're going to have the Velcro shoes, right? Then we go into like the tying shoes. Then one day your little girl will be wearing high heel shoes and you're like, oh no, it happened. But like you're not starting a baby on a high heel shoe, right? You're starting slowly. So it's the same thing with diet. We are like slowly progressing and slowly learning and moving up to the next level. We're not just going 0 to 100, right? So it's really important to understand that we are we're retraining and relearning. Like our gut needs time to be exposed to something to learn. Like you're not going to learn new language in one day. We're exposed to it. We hear it, we read it, we try to write it. We, watch a video of someone talking about it with the subtitles. Like there's so many ways to learn and be exposed to that to gain that skill. Our gut needs to learn how to digest food again. So it's going to take time. And being human, patience is not our strongest suit. I know this, but this is where working with someone can be really helpful because I couldn't have done it like with just my own accountability. Like there was no way. Because on day number 1, after my elimination diet was done, I wanted a cream soup with ice cream and cheese. Like that's what I wanted my diet to look like. And that is not where we went, So you have to remember it's slow.
Yes. So it's slow. And the next thing that I'm going to tell you is the most important thing for you to remember. 3 steps forward, 1 step back. Write it in the mirror, write it in your planner, write it on your calendar, write it in your food journal where you're keeping track of your symptoms. Write it everywhere because you will likely encounter taking 3 or maybe even 10 steps forward and then 1 step back. And it may feel like a really big step because for a while you felt good. You've been able to introduce foods, and then a food you introduce or maybe hormones or something causes you to have extreme bloating and abdominal pain. And now you're like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. Like I have to start all over. No, that's okay. We're just going to take a couple weeks here. We're going to let your body regulate. So good news of this type of step backwards. It's very expected. Bad news? Yeah, it's going to take longer to get to the, quote unquote end of the process. But there's more good news. You get more time to learn and listen to what your body is telling you. There are always going to be setbacks, just as there are in every single area of life. So don't let the backwards steps knock you down in this process. Sure, it's incredibly frustrating. Without a doubt, there's no way around that frustration. But it is 1000% worth pushing through and learning precisely which foods trigger you so that you can be fully informed and therefore forever forward make informed choices regarding your body and what you put into it for the rest of your life.
So just some closing thoughts and takeaways here for you. Who are elimination diets for? It is people who are experiencing IBS and Crohn's, colitis, celiac disease, autoimmune, allergies, histamines, right? We have to implement the lifestyle stuff first because a lot of the time we can do that and see massive changes. Like we actually don't take a lot of clients through elimination diets. Like with the hundreds and hundreds and thousands of women that we have helped, like we don't do elimination diets with a lot of people. Like we don't actually have to, which is awesome. So we want to make sure that we are addressing the lifestyle first by implementing the right kind of exercise. We want to make sure that we are focusing on sleep, rest, recovery, stress management, hydration, eating enough food, eating consistently, making sure we're getting our micronutrients, that we are getting our macronutrients. Those things have to be in place first. Because if you're not, the elimination diet probably won't even work for you because your body is still overloaded. It's still stressed out. You're not sleeping enough. That in itself results in bloating and digestion issues. So we need to address those other things first because it would suck to go through a whole elimination diet and like get no results because you didn't address the other things first. Because again, elimination diet is very challenging. You need to figure out what kind of elimination diet is right for you based on like all the criteria that we had like talked about. If you are doing the elimination diet, you figure out which one you're doing, sorting your pantry and your fridge, finding recipes in advance, going grocery shopping. We are being prepared. We are tracking down everything when it comes to our biofeedback in terms of sleep, energy, digestion, headaches, all those things, to see changes over time and really monitor what is actually influencing us and understand that this is a process. It is going to take time. There are going to be times where you say, F it, give me the block of cheese. I am over this. But you will be grateful for the way that you feel when you stick to it and like how you feel afterwards, understanding what your body needs, how your body reacts, how to support your body, work with your body instead of feeling like you're working against it all the time. And this is where, understanding what you actually need to be successful long term. Because I'll tell you, I was miserable. I did not enjoy the journey. I'm always like, enjoy the journey, embrace it, enjoy the struggle. I didn't. I made it through begrudgingly. But you know what? I can eat cheese every damn day now. So like for me, super worth it. So you just got to figure out how much is this affecting your quality of life? Are you in the mindset and like place where you can actually like do this process? And if you have questions, just message us. Like we're always happy to answer questions. So if you have questions specific to elimination diets, please message me. If I can't answer it, I will pass it off to Coach Hannah because, again, Coach Hannah is our gut guru. She will forget more things than I will ever know in this topic area for sure. I've just like gone through some of the process of it, but like she knows so many things, such a wealth of knowledge. So I'm super happy that we have her here. So yeah, if you have questions, let us know. And then I can always connect you with Hannah if I don't have the answers for you. Hannah, any closing remarks from you?
Just know that it's worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
Steph is one example. I think
do it for the cheese.
Do it for the cheese. We definitely have a couple other coaches on our team who have been through elimination protocols. Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned, I've been working with Coach Brittany for over a year, and she is still, over a year later, bringing foods back in, but she's able to eat so many more foods than she had for over a decade and feels so much better. And also, these are not for everybody. So let's focus on the things that are going to help in addition to what an elimination diet could do. Don't catastrophize your symptoms. Mm-hmm. Start with the basics, move to the elimination protocol if it's necessary, and reach out and ask us for help because we are here to do so.
Yeah, like when I was super panicking, catastrophizing, Hannah's like, just put your feet up and breathe before you eat. Like, we know how you are. And I was like, I'm fine. And then I did it and it was like, oh yay, I don't have to cut anything out. This is amazing. So like, don't feel like this is something you have to do, but if you feel like it could be, like, just message us. But there are so many things that we do with clients who have like, honestly, horrible gut health. And it's crazy how much better they feel just by having enough carbohydrates, paying attention to like fiber consistency. Are they getting enough calories in? Focusing on their sleep, the stress management. Like it's wild how many people like think they're gonna have to do something extreme and then they come in and it's not. So I don't want you to listen to this and be like, I give up. That's not what this is meant for. So love you all so much. If you have questions, reach out and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.